Jane Eyre, the woman who refused to lose herself. Jane Eyre's story begins with loneliness. She is an orphaned girl growing up in a world where she is constantly reminded that she does not belong. After losing her parents, Jane is raised by her aunt, Mrs. Reed, who treats her as an unwanted burden. Jane is bullied and isolated, while her cousins are given everything she is denied. But Jane possesses something her family cannot take from her. A strong mind, a strong heart, and an unbreakable sense of self-respect. Eventually, Jane is sent away to Lowood School, a harsh institution where the students live under strict rules and suffer from poor conditions. Life at Lowood is difficult, but Jane learns to survive. She also finds friendship. Her closest friend, Helen Burns, teaches Jane an important lesson about patience, forgiveness, and inner strength. Tragically, Helen dies during an illness. Her death leaves a deep mark on Jane. Years pass, and Jane becomes a teacher. But she longs for something more. She wants to see the world. She wants independence. So Jane accepts a position as a governess at a mysterious country house called Thornfield Hall. There, she is responsible for teaching a young girl named Adele. At first, Thornfield seems quiet and peaceful. But something about the house feels strange. Jane occasionally hears mysterious laughter coming from somewhere upstairs. Doors seem to open and close by themselves. And sometimes, the servants become strangely nervous. Then Jane meets the master of Thornfield. His name is Edward Rochester. Rochester is wealthy, intelligent, complicated, and often difficult to understand. He is not the kind of gentleman Jane expected to meet. He can be rude and unpredictable, but beneath his harsh exterior, Jane senses a wounded and lonely man. Slowly, Jane and Rochester begin to form a powerful connection. They talk openly. They challenge each other. And despite their differences in wealth and social position, Jane begins to realize that Rochester sees something in her that others never did. He sees her as an equal. Jane falls in love with him. And Rochester falls in love with Jane. Eventually, Rochester asks Jane to marry him. Jane can hardly believe it. For someone who spent her childhood feeling unwanted, the possibility of being truly loved seems almost impossible. But just as Jane's happiness appears complete, a terrible secret emerges. On the morning of the wedding, a stranger interrupts the ceremony. The truth is revealed. Rochester is already married. His wife, Bertha Mason, has been secretly living inside Thornfield Hall. The strange laughter Jane heard was coming from her. Rochester explains that his marriage was a terrible mistake and that his wife has become seriously mentally unwell. He begs Jane to stay with him. He tells her that he loves her. And Jane loves him too. But she faces an impossible choice. She could remain with Rochester and live according to her feelings. Or she could leave the man she loves and remain faithful to her principles. Jane chooses to leave. It is one of the most painful decisions of her life. She walks away from Thornfield with almost nothing. No money. No family. No certainty about the future. But she refuses to abandon herself. Jane eventually finds shelter with a kind family and begins building a new life. There, she discovers that she has relatives she never knew existed. She also receives an unexpected inheritance. For the first time in her life, Jane has financial independence. She could now live comfortably without depending on anyone. But she cannot forget Rochester. Meanwhile, Thornfield suffers a terrible disaster. A fire destroys the great house. Rochester tries to save everyone inside. He survives, but he is badly injured and loses his sight. He becomes a different man, humbled by tragedy and no longer surrounded by wealth and power. Jane eventually returns to him. When they meet again, Rochester can hardly believe that she has come back. But Jane is no longer the helpless young governess who once entered Thornfield. She has grown. She has independence. She has confidence. And now, she can choose Rochester freely, not because she needs him, but because she loves him. Rochester asks Jane to stay. This time, there are no secrets between them. No unequal bargain. No sacrifice of Jane's dignity. They marry. And Jane finally finds the home and love she had searched for throughout her entire life. But the greatest victory in Jane Eyre is not simply that Jane finds love. It is that she never loses herself while searching for it. Charlotte Bronté's novel is a story about love, but it is also a story about independence, dignity, equality, and courage. Jane is poor. She is an orphan. She has no powerful family behind her. Yet she refuses to believe that her value depends on wealth, beauty, or social status. Her strength comes from within. And that is why Jane Eyre has remained one of the most powerful novels in English literature. Jane's journey reminds us that sometimes loving someone means having the courage to walk away. And sometimes, after choosing yourself, life gives you the chance to return, not as the person you once were, but as someone stronger. Jane Eyre begins her story as a lonely orphan. She ends it as a woman who has discovered her own worth. And perhaps that is the most beautiful part of her story. She did not find herself by being loved by someone else. She became strong enough to love without losing herself.